The following is a presentation of iRacing.com Motorsport Simulations on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing. Good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to those of you watching on iRacing Live and YouTube. This is round number 24 of the RSR Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking, live tonight from the Darlington Raceway. It's the Throwback Southern 200 right here on LSRTV. Hello everybody, my name is Cisco Scaramuza, joined alongside with Brian Macton. We're going to be bringing you the whole race from South Carolina today. And Brian, a lot of throwback schemes in the race here tonight. A lot of fun looking to be had by all the drivers out there on the South Carolina Oval tonight.
Oh, absolutely. I was sitting here counting some of the throwback cars while we were getting ready to go live, and I think I counted at least 25 different throwback schemes that are being ran here tonight. It's an awesome tribute that us sim racers get to do on occasion. I know in the Monster Energy Cup Series and in the Xfinity Series this weekend, you're going to see a handful of throwback schemes yourself, but we get to do that as well here on iRacing, and it is amazing to see what these guys have come up with. And I was actually just looking, and one of the guys that is running one of those throwback paint schemes is Carl Shedd. He's on the provisional pole, and he's running a Neil Bonnet throwback, so that's pretty cool that he's out there running a Neil Bonnet car, and a bunch of these other guys paying tribute to some of the veterans of NASCAR. It's going to be a very exciting race, and we're running out of time for some of these guys on the outside of the playoff cutoff, Cisco. They've only got a handful of races left. I believe just 3 races left, or 2 races left rather, until the playoffs begin.
Tonight in Richmond are the 2 races left in the 2017 Full Throttle Cup Series to lock yourself into the chase. You guys have seen who have won the races, but right now on the board are Ross Cato and Lionel Kalisto. Just above the cut line, just below the cut line, Mike Kelly, Nelson Rivera. Those are the guys who are going to be fighting for spots tonight. It looks like finally YouTube has decided that we are going to be live at some point. Well, maybe not. We'll be fighting that in and out. So we're trying to see if we can get the stream to you, working the best we can. But either way, Brian, should be a barnstormer here at Darlington. A lot of these guys like Austin Coop and Nelson Rivera, need a win to get into this chase here, Brian.
Oh, absolutely. And like you mentioned, Mike Kelly, he sits 14 points outside of the cutoff right now. So he realistically can still point his way in as long as we don't get another first-time winner. If a Nelson Rivera or an Austin Coop or one of these guys that's further down the list gets a win, it's going to bump him back to where he's going to be even further outside of the cutoff going into Richmond. So while he needs to be mindful of the point situation and try to make up that 14-point gap, he also has to be mindful of the guys that are behind him, because one of them winning could potentially be disastrous for his season and his quest to try to get into the playoffs. So definitely got his work cut out for him here tonight and next week at Richmond, or in 2 weeks at Richmond as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We're taking a week off after this race, flip-flopping with the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. So they had the week off this past week. We'll have the week off next week, and then from there we're going to be bringing you all of segment 3 of the RSR Full Throttle Cup Series. But this is now in qualifying, starting to wrap up here from the track Too Tough to Tame. Carl Shedd right now, your provisional pole leader, and he'll get it as the checkered flag waves on the qualifying order. So we're going to get set and send you to the starting grid. Brian, talk us through your starting grid. Who is going to be your first top 5?
All right, well, Carl Shedd, as you just mentioned, he won the pole for tonight's race here at Darlington with a lap of 26.906. That was a 0.3 of a second pickup from what he ran in practice, so he was really able to step it up. Ashton Crowder will sit to his outside, starting P2 here tonight. Then the 2015 winner, David Comstock, he's going to start 3rd. Trevor Rapolo will start 4th, and rounding out the top 5, Anthony DeBarro, looking for a win. He's one of those guys that's way down in the points right now, Cisco. A win would get him a spot in the playoffs.
Andrew Freenosh is going to start 6th. 7th going to be Austin Koop in the Jacob Seelman throwback car. Seelman's not able to join us here this evening, having to double back on some production stuff, but running the 55 colors is Austin Koop. Dylan Jones starting 8th. 9th going to go to Colson Bermudez. And rounding out your top 10, Lionel Kalisto in that 97.
Corey Wolf will start in the 11th position, and to his outside, Christopher Hurlow will start P12. Then we have David Washington starting 13th, Justin Lisenby will start 14th, and Joseph Tice rounds out the top 15.
16th going to go to Nathan Little, 17th to Sean Casto, 18th Sean Bounty, 19th to Dwayne Vincent, and 20th going to go to Nick Silver.
Ross Cato will start 21st, Scott Walter is 22nd, then we have Doug Roth in 23rd, 24th goes to Shane Ewing, and the last guy to take time here tonight, he starts 25th, that's Joseph LaPlaca. Then we have 4 drivers that took a provisional here tonight. Brandon Bowie will start 26th, Nelson Rivera 27th, Randy Yoakum is 28th, and rounding out this 29 car field here tonight, Douglas Wyatt will start 29th. It's going to be a very exciting race. Cisco, of all the throwback schemes that are out here tonight, which one do you seem to enjoy the most? I know you pointed out that Austin Koop is running that Jacob Seelman tribute car. Which one other car out there do you think is really cool?
I don't know if it's cool, but the number 11 of Dylan Jones, the Rodney Coombs throwback from the old Richard Petty Busch Series days, it definitely stands out. That's the multicolored car. Half of it's yellow, half of it's red, so a very interesting car there. We will take a look at your track facts for tonight. Darlington Raceway, we're going 135 laps around this 1.3 mile circuit. Banks, your turn banking at least 23 to 25 degrees. Pit road speed 45 miles an hour in a very tricky road to get down, because remember, these guys going to be running at the top, the circumference of this track all night long, Brian, as the pace car gets ready to make its left-hand turn onto pit road. We thank you for joining us here in and amongst a little bit of technical glitches here on LSR TV for the presentation of the Full Throttle Cup Series by Real Sim Racing. The pace car dives in, and the field is in the hands of Carl Shed. Keep it locked to LSR TV, because we're green for RSR.
And look at Carl Shed. He jumped out of a cannon on the initial start of this race. He's already got 3 car lengths over Ashton Crowder as they head to one. Turn 1 is so tricky, and these drivers have to try to get single file as quickly as they can. This is one part of the track you do not want to be side by side. It looks like so far everybody's going to make it through cleanly on this opening lap of tonight's race. And now they head down to turns 3 and 4, which is a little bit easier to navigate, and you can actually do a little bit of side by side racing down in this corner. But again, you have to get it sorted out before you get to turn 1, because the track narrows up so much when you get down here. You just do not want to be side by side, and these guys are already starting to get spread out. As you see, Carl Shed trying to hold off the number 27 of Ashton Crowder as they head off turn 2.
Yeah, Crowder right now starting to close the gap on the number 45 of Carl Shed. The orange and white Ford Fusion right now leading the way, but Crowder starting to close that gap in the blue and white number 27, and Crowder closing in here. His best move's going to be if he can jump to the inside, maybe pinch Shed up to the top side. That might be a good shot to do it, or try and go to the outside. Either way, Crowder has options, but either of them is going to take a lot of finesse to get past guys here. It's very hard to pass at this track, Brian Macklin. We saw that 1 year ago, incidents with Aegis Motorsports. You remember the accident that Daniel Eberhardt had here 1 season ago? Well, this is another case where this is very hard to pass. These guys are going to have to concentrate all night long if they're looking to get it done up there.
If you talk to these drivers prior to running the race, 99% of them are going to tell you they're not racing the other drivers out on the racetrack. They are racing the racetrack itself, because of just how difficult it is to race here, and as you mentioned, how difficult it is to pass. And that's going to be the battle these guys are going to face all night long. Racing the racetrack, not getting up into that wall. As close as you're running to that wall all night long, it's very easy to make a mental mistake and get up against it, and then it could potentially ruin your night. So you have to be mindful of that throughout the entire evening. And right now, I see another car starting to creep into this battle for the race lead. He's running a Tony Stewart Old Spice throwback car. That's David Comstock in the 42. He won here in 2015. He knows how to get the job done, and he is hot on the heels of these two right in front of him. He's closed that gap down to less than a car length as they head to the strike.
Yeah, Comstock starting to close the gap in that Gary Mercer Trucking Chevrolet and looking to the inside right now. Crowder, though, is making that car very wide. He fell back off a shed a little bit, so now Comstock is going to have to do some driving here if he hopes to get past that number 27. Meanwhile, behind these guys, gap of 4 cars. Anthony DeBarro in that 99, Trevor Roppolo in the 9, the 88 to Andrew Freenosh, and Dylan Jones in that number 11. Those guys are all accordioning together, and then Colson Bermudez kind of splitting the gap between everyone else.
And Anthony DeBarro is the driver as he's trying to work around Carl Shedd. Carl Shedd just had a moment as we were going through that, coming off of turn 4, got very loose, lost the lead, lost second, lost third. He's back to 4th as a result of that. We'll try to get a replay on your screen in just a moment for what happened to our race leader there. But coming off turn 4, he had a huge moment, almost made contact with the inside wall as he was trying to gather that car up. And that's how tricky this racetrack is, Cisco. You made one mistake like that, it could potentially ruin your race. He got very lucky that he was able to keep that car going in the right direction, and he only lost a couple of positions. The problem is he lost a couple of positions to some really fast race cars now, as he's now behind Ashton Crowder, David Comstock, and Anthony DeBarro, 3 guys that all know how to get the job done.
Yeah, absolutely, Brian. And Crowder now with the lead, with the clean air, able to open up that gap a little bit on David Comstock, but Comstock keeping him honest for the most part, so this isn't quite over yet. And another big beneficiary from that, Anthony DeBarro up into the podium spot. DeBarro still needs a win. He is running out of time to get himself into this chase, and the point standings as they ran coming into tonight, he was not in a position to point his way in. So DeBarro hungry for a win, extremely hungry. Maybe it happens today in South Carolina.
Well, and this is a driver that if you expect him to run well, this is a track you'd expect him to run well at. He's always done pretty good here. Doesn't have a win here in the Full Throttle Cup Series yet here at Darlington, but always shows pretty good speed around this racetrack. Sitting up there in that 3rd position right now, he's in a really good position, but the problem he's had most of this season is closing the races out. He's had a fast car just about every single week, but he has just not been able to close the deal out. He's kind of been the Kyle Busch of our series, at least until a few weeks ago at Pocono. He's been the Kyle Busch of our series. Fast every week, just seems to have some kind of an issue, either shoots himself in the foot or has something else happen to him that takes him out of contention. But with 2 races left coming into the playoffs, he can't afford to keep making those mistakes. This is make or break for his season if he wants to have a chance to race for a championship.
Yeah, it is make or break for his season. And meanwhile, behind those guys, Carl Shedd seems to have regained control and kind of composure on that number 45 PowerTech Ford Fusion. So Shedd gonna settle back into 4th position. He's lost a lot of time to the leaders where he was sitting beforehand. So Shedd's gonna have to do a little bit of work here if he's gonna hope to get back to that lead. But for the moment, he's got that car under him. So now at this point, he just needs to start working on that track position, getting himself back up. Meanwhile, a organizational fight right now between the number 11 of Dylan Jones and the 88 of Andrew Freenosh. Those two going at it, and behind him, Colson Bermudez is being hunted down by Lionel Kalisto. We saw a little glimpse of a battle between Kalisto and Herlo earlier on. You see Herlo in the Rubbermaid throwback scheme, throwing back to the legendary Kurt Busch scheme that made this racetrack extremely famous in the battle with Ricky Craven. Herlo right now looking to the middle of the track because Kalisto was down on the inside, and Kalisto going to lose a little bit of time. So now the 21 going to go to the outside here, Ryan, and he'll make it work. Christopher Herlo up tonight, Kalisto back to 10th.
Oh, and Colson Bermudez hard into the wall going into turn 1. I'm not sure what happened. Looked like he had some kind of a major issue, and he actually has disappeared from the racing surface as well. So big problems for the 14 right there going off into the corner. That could have been disastrous for the guys around him, but they get very lucky that he is no longer in the way. And that all started with the Kalisto a couple of laps ago. He was trying to get around the 14 of Colson Bermudez because Colson got loose coming off of turn 2, and he got him pinned down on the bottom of the racetrack. He just wasn't able to make that move. That's what allowed Christopher Herlo to get by him and take that position away. But now these guys are battling for the 8th and 9th position here, trying to just hang on to the backside of the top 10. And Corey Wolf is right behind them as well. These guys having a pretty good battle back here, battling on the outside of the top 10.
Yeah, top 10, Corey Wolf just got into that position, and Justin Lisenby also under attack from David Washington. Washington going to go the outside of the 31. Lisenby down on the inside, and Lisenby's going to make contact. They're going to go around. David Washington going to hold on to it, as will Lisenby, but a huge bit of contact there. Washington falls down the grid, and it's an early headache right there for the driver of the 98. Replay coming up shortly.
A very scary moment for both of those drivers. They're going to give up their track position on the racetrack. They were running 11th and 12th prior to that happening, and now as scoring is getting ready to update, it looks like they're going to be almost outside of the top 20 after all that happened. It looks like, indeed, Justin Lisenby is back to the 18th position, David Washington back to 20th. So several positions lost for both of those drivers, but another case similar to Carl Shedd's, that could have been much bigger than it was for both of those drivers. A little bit of damage on the 31 machine, not too much on David Washington's car, just a little bit. They're probably going to need some fresh tires here pretty soon now in order to stay competitive in this race. Other than that, they're in an okay position. Meanwhile, back up inside of the top 10, got a little bit of a battle starting to brew up. Dylan Jones right on the back bumper of Andrew Freenars. You talked about him a couple of laps ago. Well, they've also caught a couple guys in front of him. Carl Shedd and Trevor Roppolo right in front of them. A four-way battle for 4th through 7th position right now.
Yeah, those guys going at it, and for Jones right now, looking a little bit to the inside. Lap car, the 33 at Douglas White, going to go by on the inside out of the racing group. Nothing to worry about there. So for Jones right now, he has to look to see where he makes his move, because he doesn't want to make the same mistake that we saw Washington and Lisenby get into. That was a really messy, sticky situation. Doesn't want that to happen to who is basically a teammate in front of him. That would not go over well in the Aegis stable. So Jones trying to play it safe. He'll look to the inside this time out of 4. Nothing there, though. Car didn't have enough grip, so Jones still kind of stuck behind that 88.
While all that's going on, we have a battle for the lead starting to brew up. David Comstock has closed right to the back bumper of Ashton Crowder, and as they head to turn 3, he is right there again trying to make a move. Look how close these guys are running to the outside wall, just getting up against that wall and running inches off of it. Then they dime the corner down, and look at David Comstock making the move for the race lead. It looks like Ashton Crowder is going to heed the position to him, and on lap number 21, David Comstock to the point for the race lead here at Darlington.
Yeah, and still trying to get the live picture to the live viewers right now, but David Comstock makes the move and gets to the lead, so the 42 back in front where he wants to be. And for David Comstock at this point, he's hoping he could just check out on that driver of Ashton Crowder. Crowder, though, I don't think wants that to be so easy. He's going to stay with the 42, at least for the moment, so let's see how this progresses here as we move forward with the race. Meanwhile, DeBarro still on his own in 3rd, Shedd off in his own world in 4th. 5th going to go to Trevor Roppolo. Jones is kind of pulled away a little bit from Freenash and kind of going through your field. Everyone's very spread out for the moment. Your closest battle, Joseph Tice right now going to the outside. That's a lap car. That's Douglas Wyatt, so never mind on that. But Austin Coop is also in that 12th position. A little bit of damage on the right front of that 55, but for the most part, that car also looking very clean right now, Macklin.
Yeah, he's one of the handful of drivers that have already claimed their Darlington stripe here tonight, and it's so easy to do. Again, as close as these guys are running to the wall, it is so easy to make that little bit of a mental error and get up against it. And then you also have to factor in you're working around lap traffic, as you see these guys are catching Douglas Wyatt there. Austin Coop actually caught him at a very bad place, had to check up, and that's going to allow Dwayne Vincent to be able to scream by him down the back straightaway, and he will take that 12th position away from Austin Coop now. And Dwayne Vincent's one of those drivers. This is a track that really caters to his driving style. He's very laid back. He doesn't really get very aggressive behind the wheel, and this is the type of track where you really can't be too aggressive, because that will cause you to have issues. And he's marching his way up through the field, Cisco. He started back in the 19th position, and 24 laps in, he's up to 12th, so he's definitely on his way to the front.
Yeah, Dwayne Vincent marching forward right now is that driver of the number 13 Haviland Ford. And for Dwayne Vincent at this point, he's gotten through a lot of that traffic that was stuck together, and at this point it's pretty spread out for the most part. We went through your field and everybody has a pretty big gap. The closest battle right now is for that lead, but Crowder's been maintaining that 0.3, 0.4 of a gap between himself and Comstock, so nothing really going on in that area. And then everyone else, for the most part, your closest gap right now is actually Nick Silver right on the back bumper. He'll scrape the wall a little bit there. The McDonald's Ford rather got a little piece of the wall and now is going to be under attack from Sean Casto in the City Chevrolet.
Yeah, paying tribute to the Days of Thunder days and that beautiful paint scheme right there, trying to work his way up there to the back bumper of Nick Silver. He had to check up just a little bit when Nick got into the wall. That cost him to lose a little bit of ground to these guys, but you can chalk up Nick Silver to another one that has now officially gotten his Darlington stripe, and now Austin Coop gets back up against the wall in the middle of 3 and 4. So as these tires begin to wear out, these guys are really starting to find out just how difficult this track is to drive. And looking at their lap times right now, I was actually just looking at David Comstock. He ran a 28.676 last time by. Well, these guys started off running at 27.0, so they have almost dropped off a full 2 seconds. And speaking of David Comstock, he's been caught back by Ashton Crowder. Ashton's right on his back bumper. He was about a half a second back just a couple of laps ago. Now right there as they head through 1 and 2.
So pouncing on Comstock right now is Crowder off the corner there and starts to lose a little bit of time, so those two kind of according together. And right now Crowder looking to see where he can make that move, Brian, and at this point I think it's a waiting game for him. Meanwhile, Trevoropoulos also in a very close interval right now to the car in front of him. Caution is gonna be out here, so problems, it looks like perhaps Douglas Wyatt in the 33. Big damage on the front end of the Napa Shocks machine.
Yeah, looking at the number 33 machine, he got into the wall coming off turn 2, then bounced it across into the inside wall and then slid back up into the racing surface. That will bring out our first caution of the evening. A single car wreck, fortunately for everybody else, unfortunate for Douglas Wyatt. But now we get our first opportunity at pit stops, and it looks like David Comstock's going to be leading these guys to pit road. Cisco, I have to believe we will not see anybody take 2 tires at this point. Almost a 30-lap green flag run on these tires, so 4 tires and fuel are going to be the way to go. And this is such a long pit road. It takes these guys forever to get to their pit boxes, especially the ones that have pit boxes at the very end of pit road. You have to be careful not to get caught speeding down here. It's very easy to do.
Yeah, if you get caught speeding at this point, Macklin, you're just going to be in for a world of hurt. So everybody taking it nice and easy, single file down pit road for the most part. David Comstock looking for his box, third one on the line there. Crowder in front of him, and Carl Shed in the number 1 pit box. Right side's going up right now on all those cars. You see Shed go down on the left side's up right now for Comstock. He's going to be the first one out of the box. He's going to be Crowder, and he's going to get Shed too, and DeBarro is going to, no he's not, he's going to give up that position. Yeah, and they're starting to play a little bit of games here, Brian, because I'm not sure these guys want to be starting on a different line. I think they want to start on that inside line.
Oh, the gamesmanship being played on pit road. We saw this at Bristol a couple of weeks ago in the Monster Energy Cup Series, and we saw how it didn't work out for a couple of drivers that were trying to do that. One specifically was Denny Hamlin. He tried to do that several times, and in most cases ended up having it backfire against him. So interesting to see what happens here if this actually works out for any of these drivers. It looks like Ashton Crowder will be in that 2nd position, followed by Carl Shed in 3rd, and then Anthony DeBarro, who could have come out in 2nd, but because he chose to back off right at the end of pit road, he's actually going to be in 4th here. So I don't think this necessarily worked out for Anthony DeBarro. I think he was aiming to be on the inside line, trying to be in 3rd, but now he's going to be stuck on the outside line and could potentially be in trouble in this next restart.
Yeah, he could be in trouble. He needs to make sure he keeps that car going here, because otherwise can be a little bit of an issue. So everybody's got to have a really good restart, Brian, if they're going to hope to be able to hold on to their position, because it can all change extremely quickly here at the Darlington Raceway if you don't get a good enough jump and make it happen when you restart. But I want to remind you that coverage of the Real Sim Racing Full Throttle Cup Series on LSRTV is brought to you by Joel Real Timing, the official timing sponsor of LSRTV. Get it today at joel-real-timing.com. Whether you spend your time on the sim, behind the wheel, or up in the pit box, GRT is the go-to software for iRacing timing and scoring analytics. We use it up here in the booth to let you know where the intervals are. You get to use it. It's used plenty when we talk about endurance racing. It can help you out here on the ovals as well, Brian. A great product and a great friend to LSRTV.
Oh, absolutely. I've actually downloaded the software and used it myself, just tinkering around with it, and it's got some really cool features. If you're wanting to use it for official races on iRacing, you can actually find out the strength of field of the race that you're running in, so you can get an idea for the amount of points that you're going to score in that particular race. So a lot of different features, and of course, like you mentioned, Cisco, we use it here on LSRTV for our broadcasts, and they just have such an incredible product that we are so proud to be a part of and get to use here. But we're got to get ready for another restart here. These guys have doubled up. We're 1 to green. The next time around, we're going to be going back green flag. David Comstock is going to be in control of this thing, and I'm going to run through the top 10 here real quickly. We got Ashton Crowder starting second. Then we have Carl Shedd, Anthony DeBarro, Trevor Roppolo in fifth, and Dylan Jones, Lionel Callisto, Christopher Hurlow, Joseph Tice, and Dwayne Vincent rounds out the top 10. These guys are going to have to fight to get single file when they get back to turn 1, Cisco. It's going to be a battle. We saw everybody do it pretty cleanly on the initial start. Can they get it done again on this restart?
I guess we'll just have to find out as the pace car gets ready to make its left-hand turn on the pit road, and looks like we may be getting somewhere with the YouTube stream eventually. Pace car down to the inside, and lights go green here, and we're back green racing here from Darlington, and David Comstock is gone. And meanwhile, the battle right now, Carl Shedd drops back in line. They're 2 by 2 back in your pack for 8. Tice gonna go around the 21 to Hurlow. David Washington gonna go around the 13 of Vincent. That inside line is where you want to be on these restarts, Macklin. That worked out. Ashton Crowder is the only one who was really able to hold on that position with a commanding grab. Everyone else, for the most part, had to fight to just keep their spot or just lose it completely.
Yeah, this early in the race, if you're one of those drivers that's getting pinned on the outside line, you almost just have to heed the position and let them go. It's better to take that loss now and then try to battle for it and get yourself caught up in a wreck that could take you out of the race. So it looks like everybody did a lot of give and take right there and did a really good job at keeping their cars out of trouble. And now that things have kind of sorted out a little bit, they can begin to try to attack as we have one around in the middle of 3 and 4. That's the 5 of Joseph Tice. He backs it up in the traffic, and Austin Coop comes in late. He had nowhere to go and ran right into his side. And that brings out our second caution of the evening, and unfortunate heavy damage for the number 5 of Joseph Tice and the 55 of Austin Coop. That looks like it began with a little bit of contact from the 21 of Christopher Hurlow, Cisco. Looks like he got into the back bumper and kicked him sideways, and unfortunately that's what caused this caution.
And you hate to see something like that happen, but yeah, Hurlow just made up a ton of time, got into the rear end of the 5. Tice tried to lock it up, took it to the high side, and just Austin Coop picked the wrong lane to go in, tried to go by. There was no room, and smoke began to pour from the Toyota Camry of Austin Coop. You hate to see that, but unfortunately for Coop, it's going to be basically done and dusted. And that could very well end his bid to try and get into these playoffs, Macklin. He's been trying for so long to get into these and just had terrible luck as that driver, normally of the 6 tonight in the 55. And it just goes from bad to worse for Coop there.
It absolutely puts him in a must-win situation when we get to Richmond in 2 weeks, and then he was already pretty much in that situation, but now it is a do-or-die situation for him if he wants to get into the playoffs. One last opportunity when we get there, and that is a bit of a wild card. Short tracks can create a little bit of chaos. A lot of beating and banging goes on, and Richmond's one of those tracks where anything can happen. He might find himself in a position to try to steal one, so can't completely count the 55 out when we get there, but definitely got his back against the wall as we head to that little short track here in a couple of weeks.
Yep, and Richmond, like we said, coming up in 2 weeks, not next week, so we encourage you to take a week off, go out, see, smell the roses, get all that done, and get back here next 2 Mondays from here on for the final race of the regular season here for the RSR Full Throttle Cup Series. As I'm still trying to work to see if I can get this stream to work, YouTube is deciding to be a little curmudgeon with me today, so such is the case, we'll try and make it work. We're gonna try this solution this time, Brian, so hopefully that time this will get it up. Either way, you guys will be seeing this in one form or another as a video, so we'll try and make it work. But let's see, right now the encoder's showing green, so that's just a little bit of behind the scenes work for me, Macklin, but light's still on the pace car here. We're riding around Darlington. That was a really quick yellow after the caution last time by, so now with this yellow flag run, we're just under the 100 to go mark, so a lot of racing left to go here, Brian, but it makes it a little bit easier for these drivers to tell, okay, this is how long I can make a fuel stint last. It's one of those nice round numbers, 100 laps to go. You gotta like that as a driver.
It definitely makes it easier. You can plan out your strategy a little bit easier. The crew chief can talk to you and kind of give you an idea where you need to be. And these guys can go right about 50 laps on a tank of gas here. So it's going to be a pretty close number there to being able to do a one-stop race. I think with this caution, these drivers are probably going to be able to pull it off. But I also think most of these drivers have anticipated we have not seen our last caution here tonight and are probably not thinking too much about coming to pit road under green right now. If we get another long green flag run like we had to open up the race with, I imagine these guys will start thinking about it. But right now, I think it's just business as usual. Let's get out there, log laps, keep our car clean, keep it out of trouble. And if we get to a point where we have to worry about that, we will then. So it's just going to be a game. We're going to have to wait and see what happens with these guys. But one guy I want to talk about is Lionel Callisto. He's the guy holding the cutoff spot right now. He sits in the 7th position right now, Cisco, having a really solid run here tonight. And this is a track where he has not had a tremendous amount of success at over the past couple of years, but definitely could use a solid run here tonight just to protect himself in that battle to make it into the playoffs.
Yeah, he could. And Callisto, at this point, it's just consistency, I think, Macklin. If he could just have, like you said, a solid night and just have everything just go his way, he might have a chance to maybe make that playoff position a little more comfortable here for that driver of the 97. But your top 10 coming back to the green flag: David Comstock, Ashton Crowder, Anthony DeBarro, Carl Shedd, Dylan Jones, Trevor Roppolo, David Washington, Lionel Callisto, Dwayne Vincent, and Andrew Freenosh. That's your top 10 as the Ford Mustang iRacing.com pace car makes its left-hand turn back onto pit road and leaves the field in the hands of Dave Comstock. Comstock looking for the point to get on the loud pedal. There it is, green flag back in the air. We're re-green from Darlington.
And David Comstock gets away. Now the battle is to try to get single file when you get down to turn 1. Anthony DeBarro is going to get there. He's going to get single file. Carl Shedd's going to get single file, but they're still battling side by side all the way through the middle of the corner. That's Trevor Roppolo on the bottom of the racetrack. He gets clear, and one's in the wall, and that sends Callisto into the inside wall. Big wreck on the backstretch, and we were just talking about Callisto. He needed a solid run. This is not going to do it. A big wreck on the backstretch takes out at least 10 cars and could potentially be disastrous for one of our potential playoff contenders.
I saw at least 7 cars get tangled up in that, Macklin. It was a massive incident. It all started with Lionel Callisto getting sent to the inside wall. We'll check out the view above the 97 to see what exactly happened. And the problem was, the 98 got in the wall. Dave Washington actually got a piece of the wall and wrecked in front of the guys, and everyone had nowhere to go. He was up in that top groove. We'll get a look from above the 98 here in a second so we can see what happened. That's what happened to Callisto. That was actually the more minor of the 2 incidents, as Dave Washington, after a night that he did not want to remember in Bristol with the encumbered win, David Washington tonight, it just goes from bad to worse. Already made contact with the wall, and it happens again.
And just disaster for those guys. And you've got to feel so bad for Lionel Callisto. He came into tonight with a 14-point gap. The only advantage that he's got coming out of this is that Mike Kelly is actually not here tonight to try to gain any ground on him. The guy that he has to worry about trying to gain on him as well, Nelson Rivera. I just noticed this. He did not take the green flag. He was in the server. He was qualified at 27th, but he did not take the green flag. So a little bit of a bright spot for Lionel Callisto right here, that he's not going to give up points to the 2 guys that are behind him chasing. And Austin Coop as well had a rough night. He's already out. So a big break there for the number 97 team, that he's actually going to be able to maintain that position more than likely without really losing any ground.
And this is one of those cases, Brian, where we talk about it a lot of times with a place like Dover, a self-cleaning racetrack where everybody washes down. If you're in the incident and you get washed down to the inside, the track sort of cleans itself. Darlington, not so the case when you come off of turn 2, because the problem is everyone's up on that high side as we ride on board with Nick Silver. Barely misses that first spinning car, but wasn't able to miss. Believe that's going to be Doug Roth who's going to make contact along with Sean Casto. We see him get into Joseph LaPlaca there in the 58. But this is not a self-cleaning racetrack at all, because everyone's up on that top groove. So at least as far as the straightaways are concerned, if you start to wreck up there, Brian, you got nowhere to go.
Well, yeah, there's no banking to send these cars down the track like there is at Bristol. I mean, there is a little bit of banking in the corners and slightly banked on the straightaways, but not compared to Dover, where the track just it has such a bank where it sends the cars down the track. And like you mentioned, that is the racing surface, and you really just have nowhere to go and very little time to react. These straightaways are not that long, and so when something like that happens and you're coming off the corner at full throttle, you really just have a minimal amount of time, just a couple of seconds to make a decision on what you're going to do and where you're going to go. And unfortunately, that was just not a good situation for any of those guys back there, and just a huge wreck that leaves us with just 14 cars on the lead lap. That's how many cars were just caught up in that. We had about 24 on the lead lap prior to that wreck, and now we only have 14. So a huge wreck for these guys.
Yeah, massive wreck, takes out a good chunk of the field. We're on the other side of the halfway point as far as cars left in this race. I can see motion out of the Nick Silver machine. He's still trying to make that thing work. Brandon Bowie is still trying to recover a little bit. Freenash, Walter Ewing, this is going up through the order. Ewing, Boundy, Vincent, Rapallo, Jones, Shed, DeBarro, Crowder, and Comstock. And now it looks like motion from the Hurlo pit, so the 21 does sputter back into life, but massive damage on the front end of that Ford Fusion. The Rubbermaid entry not looking good for a returning Christopher Hurlo, who was out of town last week, so we didn't see him. But either way, back in the race car is Christopher Hurlo. Also want to note, something to note on championship points, the Jasper entry, the US Air entry fires back into life. Austin Coop won't be denied. This is his opportunity, Brian. He can pass a lot of guys right now. He's only really 4 and 7 laps off some of the guys who wrecked out, and if he has a motor left in that car, this may not be over, and this might actually be a good night for Coop.
Well, he can definitely pick up some points, which is definitely something that he needs. He came into tonight just 50 points outside of the cutoff, so still pretty much in a must-win situation. But if he can pick up a handful of points, maybe get that gap down to under 1 race, he could potentially do something crazy at Richmond in a couple of weeks. But we're about to go back green flag here. David Comstock has control. Pace car to the safety of pit road once again, and Comstock on the loud pedal back under green here, and he already has jumped out to a couple car length advantage, and he's trying to get away from Master Crowder as they head to 1.
I'll tell you what, we're in business because the stream is green, the race is green, and David Comstock is gone for the moment. He's put 2 tenths right now on Crowder just on that restart alone, but Crowder gets such a good run off the corner, Brian. It makes it hard to really pull away from that 27. Meanwhile, the close battle right now is between the 2 organizational teammates, Dylan Jones of Aegis, the PowerTech entry, Carl Shed. Those 2 are very close coming out of 4, and closest battle right now is for that spot right outside the podium.
And everybody has gotten single file here, and this has gotten really spread out in a hurry. The top 5 drivers have already gapped everybody else by well over a second now, so these guys are just trying to get away, and Anthony DeBarro is trying to hang on to that 3rd position. The pole sitter, Carl Shed, right there on the back bumper, looks to the inside through 3 and 4, but can't quite get the run through the middle of the corner to get to him, and it probably works out best for him because now as they head to turn 1, he does not want to be on that inside line. It would not pan out well for him at all, and you see he's going to just try to stay in right behind these guys, as now the front 2 are starting to gap everybody back here just a hair. They've gotten out to about a 4 car length advantage over Anthony DeBarro, who's just trying to hang on right now and try to keep himself in contention for a win.
Yeah, I think DeBarro at this point, he can play the long game in this race, Brian. If Crowder and Comstock start fighting, rather, between themselves for the lead, that could be the opportunity for DeBarro to make the move on maybe a little bit better tires, as long as he can hold those organizational teammates behind him at bay, because Carl Shen and Dylan Jones, they may be trying to get past the 99 here, maybe work a little bit together to try and get past that 99, but either way, those 2 sit in the position where they're right on the back bumper of the WinView Gaming 99. DeBarro's got to make sure he's keeping an eye on that windscreen because he could make a move if something happens to the 2 leaders, but he's also got to be aware that behind him are 2 very hungry drivers.
Yeah, but I don't think he's necessarily worrying about those guys behind him. He's worrying about his situation, which is I need to get a win. He knows that he needs to get a win, and that's what his focus is here tonight. Just trying to stay in touch with the race leaders, trying to keep himself in a position to go out there and get the victory. As Carl Shed has another moment, he almost got up into the wall off turn 4. Could have been disastrous for him, but he was able to keep it off the wall and able to keep it going in the right direction. But for Anthony DeBarro, he just needs something to go his way. Just one time so he can get that win, get himself into the playoffs, and be able to compete for a championship. He's been here through most of the season, just has not had the luck that he has needed. He's trying to close one out here tonight. Running still within about a second of the leaders right now. He didn't really stay with them too well on the first long green flag run we had, but you have to believe he might have been trying to manage his tires at that point of the run, just seeing what he had and maybe trying to feel it out for the later part of the race.
Yeah, and Anthony DeBarro right now, like we said, kind of just sitting, playing serve right now, waiting to see what happens with the leaders. You had that close battle with Shed and Jones. We look back a little bit, Rapallo and Vincent, that's another interesting battle here. Those two are pretty close, and a better battle right now going on is Nick Silver, who got tagged in that last accident, and right in front of him is the 34 of Sean Boundy, and this is a driver who maybe not necessarily in a position to point his way into the championship, but Brian, if something happens or if he wants to play the strategy card, DeBarro's teammate in that 34 could have the opportunity to spring back into this battle. Right now, gets passed by two cars. He's going to let two go by. Brandon Bowie in the Terry Labonte throwback Piedmont Ford, and then in front of him, Nick Silver also got by. You can see Andrew Greenash wants to get by as well.
And Brandon Bowie's a name we haven't really called much at all tonight. He started back in the 26th position and has just kind of stayed quiet here tonight, and I believe he's tried to stay out of trouble. He made it through that last big wreck pretty cleanly, and now he's up inside the top 10, sitting back there in the 9th position with a very clean race car in that beautiful Terry Labonte tribute, as you mentioned. But this is another driver. He's in the playoffs based on points. He's pretty safely into the playoffs based on points. As a matter of fact, I think he's probably locked in at this point. But he wants a win just so that he can say, hey, I've got the speed to do it. He's been another one of those drivers that, much like Anthony DeBarro, he's had speed all season long. Hasn't quite had the disastrous luck that we've seen DeBarro have, but he's had a lot of bad luck that's kept him from winning races. Most notably was Indianapolis. He had a very fast car at Indy and got caught up with some issues on pit road that took him out of contention for the win.
So here's the game plan for these guys. For the guys who are basically good to get into the chase here on point standings, guys like an Anthony DeBarro, like a Brandon Bowie, or not an Anthony DeBarro, rather. Bowie is actually a very good example, and guys like someone, let's say Nick Silver. Those guys who are basically locked in at this point by the points gap alone, they just need to have solid races, Brian, and unfortunately, for some of the guys who were right on the cusp of it, tough nights, but I'll tell you one thing. Austin Coop, we mentioned, he had to pass cars. That's exactly what he did. Now sitting on pit road, getting the rest of his damage fixed, sits 16th, but in front of all the cars that have fallen off the racetrack. So strategy's being played out of that 55 camp to get as many points as he can that he's able to do without nuking the motor on that car and taking him effectively out of this entire race.
Yeah, Coop doing exactly what he needs to do. And for these other drivers, like you just mentioned, for Nick Silver, for Brandon Bowie, for Dwayne Vincent, these are three drivers that are pretty much locked into the playoffs based on points, but don't have a win. They need momentum. Carrying into the playoffs, they just need to get into a rhythm and get some momentum. Try to get built up and get ready to go for the playoffs because it's going to be a very tough battle for all these drivers. The 16 guys that end up in this championship battle are going to have their work cut out for them. They've got several really big hitters trying to race for this championship that are already guaranteed a spot. David Comstock being one, David Washington being one, Daniel Eberhardt, Adam Benefield. There's a handful of drivers that really have a grasp on what to do and to try to get there and battle for a championship. And for these guys that haven't necessarily gotten a win, they need to try to figure out where to find that little bit of speed and get into a rhythm and be able to contend with those guys, because 10 races is not a very long time. And when you have elimination races every 3 races, Cisco, you can't afford to be one of those guys that's sitting in the backside of the field like these guys have spent some of the last handful of races.
And I'll tell you one thing, and I heard it over the channels here and there, a couple of these guys may be missing that initial race in Chicago, that first playoff race of 10. They're going to have to win their way in, because these guys, they don't get fillers. Brian, if you aren't here, you're basically forcing yourself to go out and win the next race in order to lock yourself into the next round into the playoffs. We saw something similar. I mean, think back to the Logano-Kenseth situation. We saw that all escalate and everything like that, and as a result, Logano darn near missed the final round of the playoffs after that whole incident with Kenseth. Actually, I think he might have missed the playoffs because of that accident. So you have a bad finish in one of these races, Brian, you're going to be on the outs. You'll have to win your way in for the most part to get your way into that next round of the chase. And for a couple of these guys, they may have to win regardless if they have to miss that race.
And that's going to make it a very big challenge for those drivers. We'll have to wait and see what happens with that. Meanwhile, back at the front, I believe Ashton Crowder is starting to close that gap in just a little bit. It was about 0.6 of a second just a couple of laps ago. It was down under a half a second now. And there's one other driver that's right here staying with him on this run, which is what I was talking about earlier, Anthony DeBarro. He continues to stay right on the back bumper of Ashton Crowder. All three of these guys within a half a second of each other. And DeBarro is carrying some really good speed through the corner. Looks like he's going to get right on the back bumper of Ashton Crowder. Not quite close enough to make a move, but definitely on his way towards the front here in the later part of this race.
Yeah, and DeBarro kind of playing the game of the Sebastian Vettel of this race. Sebastian Vettel in the Belgian Grand Prix on Sunday had better tires because he was saving them. The problem for him, he wasn't able to get past Lewis Hamilton because, well, the aerodynamics just wouldn't go his way, and he lost that advantage. Hamilton was able to cap it off in Belgium. Anthony DeBarro in a very similar scenario because he has a little bit better tires because he wasn't battling with the top two leaders, but the problem is it's so hard to pass here, Brian, that even if you have the fastest car on the track, sometimes you just have to flat out move the guy, and if you look to try and get to the inside and get to the and get past that driver. So for Anthony DeBarro right now, we know desperation is on the line, but we're still well early into this race. He's still got plenty of time left in this thing. DeBarro doesn't have to resort to that yet.
Well, one thing that he could also be trying to do is setting himself up for potential green flag pit stops. He knows how difficult it is to pass here. What better way to make up ground on the track and potentially make up positions on the racetrack than to have a good pit road cycle? If you can stay close to these drivers until it's time for green flag pit stops and then have a really solid pit stop, he could potentially jump ahead of these guys on pit road and never even have to battle with them on the racetrack. So that could be another thing that's going through his mind. Let me stay close to these guys, stay in reach or within reach of these drivers, and then when it comes time to do that, have my pit crew help me get ahead of them. That's something he definitely needs to keep in mind, and probably is keeping in mind here as we're getting into a pretty good rhythm here. We've been going green for about 20 laps now, and it looks like things are pretty spread out, so I believe we're going to stay green for quite a while now, and these guys have to start thinking about that and potentially thinking about coming to pit road in the next 25 to 30 laps or so.
Battle right now is the 88 is 8th right now, and Nick Silver is in 9th, and he's looking for a little bit more. The Batman McDonald's entry, the Ford Fusion of Nick Silver, looking to see if he can maybe make a move on that PowerTech machine in front of him of Andrew Freenosh. And Nick Silver right now is in the position where, remember, he had that crash damage. We keep looking back because he's been able to make his way, despite the damage, up through this pack more or less. So Nick Silver, someone to keep an eye on, doing an excellent job at the moment. Also another car back out on the racetrack after that huge big one that we saw. Joseph LaPlaca in the 58. No front bumper on that. It's starting to look a little bit like modified. But either way, Joseph LaPlaca looking to try and just run laps and get out there and get points. Austin Coop doing the same thing, and he's at least got a front bumper. He's actually going to make a little bit of contact with the wall. So this is also the danger, Brian. This field may be spread out, but a lot of cars with damage coming back out here. That could be steering damage. Obviously, you're going to have engine damage. Those cars aren't going to be what they were.
Yeah, and that's definitely something the leaders are going to have to be mindful of as we go through this race, trying to work their way around the lap traffic without getting caught up. And that's a situation where it could allow for one of these drivers to be able to make a move for the lead or for a position. If they can catch the guy in front of them as they are catching a lap car at a bad place, you could potentially make up some ground. Very similar to Bristol in that respect, where if you can just catch them at a bad point, you can get around them. But just one of those things we're going to have to keep in mind. And also we have to keep in mind, we just crossed the midway point of this race, so we're going to take a look at our iRacing Midway race break brought to you by iRacing, the leading online racing simulation. Developed from the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service, iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks all around the world. In the fast-paced world of esports, iRacing is a one-stop shop for online racing, with officially sanctioned racing from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, the Cars Tour, USAC, and more. more. And as we are past that halfway point, David Comstock is your race leader still on lap number 70. He started to gap Ashton Crowder, who is back in that second position. Then we have Anthony DeBarro in third, looking for his first win on the season. He's going to try to get it here tonight. Dylan Jones in that fourth position right now. Carl Shedd, our pole sitter, he's in the fifth position. And then Brandon Bowie, he started all the way back in the 26th position. He's up to sixth. Then we have Dwayne Vincent in seventh. Andrew Freenars is in eighth. Nick Silver is in ninth. And rounding out the top 10, Trevor Roppolo runs 10th.
11th going to go to Sean Boundy. Excellent run for the number 34 entry. Scott Walters running 12th, 13th to Shane Ewing, 14th to Christopher Hurlow, 15th going to go to Sean Casto. Austin Coop runs 16th, 17th going to go to Joseph LaPlaca, 18th to Lionel Callisto. Corey Wolf runs 19th, and David Washington rounds out your top 20.
David Washington actually in that 21st position. Then we have Lionel Callisto in 22nd, Doug Roth in 23rd. Then we have Justin Lisenby in 24th. Randy Yoakum is 25th. Nathan Little 26th. Douglas Wyatt is 27th. And then rounding out the 28-car field here tonight, Colson Bermudez is in the 28th position. And unfortunately, that will be where he finishes here tonight as he is out of the race. This concludes your iRacing Midway race break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, visit iRacing.com to sign up today. For a limited time, you can visit iRacing.com/World of Outlaws and take advantage of exclusive promo codes to get yourself on the sim with a 1-year membership for half the price. And you can't beat that deal. A very incredible deal. And now that we have gotten through that Midway race break, Cisco, got a little bit of an issue for Anthony DeBarro. Actually, not an issue. He's on pit road for his pit stop here tonight. Looks like he's decided that tires are more important than the fuel run, and he has come to the attention of his pit crew here on lap number 73. It's going to be interesting to see what this does to the rest of these drivers if it's going to bring them in.
And Crowder's going to jump to the inside of David Comstock, make the pass happen at Darlington. So Ashton Crowder to the lead here. Excellent job by the driver of the 27 to get back in front of David Comstock. He'll grab the lead away. Meanwhile, you mentioned Anthony DeBarro came down pit road. So the pit strategy happening for the WinView Games number 99 Chevrolet SS. DeBarro off of pit road already. A good stop for him. Looks like it was a 14.4 last time, so that's a very good stop for DeBarro. Off the apron of the track, back up towards the top side. And now the question is, who is the next person to make the venture down on the pit road? Right now, it's not your two leaders. And oh, by the way, Ashton Crowder is gone. Once he passed David Comstock, apparently he was a little bit faster, Brian, because he just left Comstock to the wolves.
Absolutely. He is pulled away by over a second from Comstock, and Comstock looks like he's got an issue with that car right now because the last 3 or 4 laps he has been incredibly loose coming off of both corners, and that's where he's losing all the time to Ashton Crowder right now. He just does not seem to have the grip in that car anymore. Not sure if he got the tires upset when he slid them the first time, but it just continues to get worse for that 42 machine, and you got to believe that he's got to be wanting to come to pit road, and you have to be mindful of the fact now that Anthony DeBarro is out there on fresher tires. He's running almost 2 seconds a lap faster than these guys that are running out here on the older tires. At some point, you have to wonder how much time do you want to give up to him, because as laps tick off, if you stay out there for 4 or 5 laps, well, that's close to 10 seconds you're going to give up to him. Do you really want to give up that kind of time to a guy that needs a win when you're trying to get a win yourself?
I think there might have been issues. I'm not sure what happened, but perhaps issues. Let me wind back the camera. Something might have happened to Sean Casto. Oh, he might have come back down pit road. I think he passed a couple cars while he was on track. Let me double check. Yeah, he did. Okay, so we'll pull the cameras back to live. I wasn't sure what happened with the 46, but he's back on pit road sitting in the stall. He's passed enough cars for the night, so I think Casto just trying to help get himself as many points as possible, kind of like what Coop's doing right now. But either way, another car on pit road. Brandon Bowie, the 44, the Terry Labonte scheme, is coming off pit road right now. 4 tires for the driver, the number 44, 14.3 on pit road. Dwayne Vincent also on pit road. The Haviland Ford right side's going up right now. And caution right in the middle of pit stops, and it's going to be huge issues for Anthony DeBarro.
Wow, and he got very lucky there. He was coming off the corner trying to get around a lap car, got loose, caught it, spun it out, and I don't believe he made contact with anything. Maybe goes down and kisses the inside wall. He does kiss the inside wall with the front end, but either way, not what he needed to see. He was out there trying to take advantage of those fresh tires to try to catch Ashton Crowder off and maybe try to steal this lead away from him. And disaster strikes once again for the number 99 machine, trying to get his first win on the season to lock themselves into the playoffs. And unfortunately, he's got an uphill battle if he's going to make it happen here tonight.
Yeah, DeBarro tried to go to the inside. That's Scott Walter in the 28. New colors for that driver, so a little unique car for my eyes at least. But DeBarro got loosed, went too far to the inside, trying to pass the 28 of Walter, Brian. And that's all it took for the Winview Gaming 99 car to go all the way around. So now for Anthony DeBarro, it's just, at this point, it's damage control, because at this point he's fallen back to 11th right now. He's probably going to get the EOL penalty for that one if he claims the caution, and as a result, DeBarro going to fall all the way back to the back of this lead pack here. Everybody else who hadn't come down pit road, though, coming down pit road, and one guy I'm curious to see how he's going to come out of all of this. Dwayne Vincent being shown 1 lap down, Anthony DeBarro being shown 1 lap down, but Brandon Bowie got the wave around, I believe. Either that or he stayed out. He might have actually just gotten a gift right there, Brian. I don't know. We'll have to see. But either way, cars down pit road right now. Ashton Crowder led them in. And right side's going up right now on a lot of those cars. And now the case is who's going to win the race off pit road and who's actually going to try and play the strategy game. One car doing that looks like Shane Ewing. So a little bit interesting strategy for the Rayovac Batteries entry. But Ashton Crowder leads it off pit road, and for the most part, pretty calm off pit road. So at this point, Ashton Crowder's going to inherit second. You see Brandon Bowie going around on the outside, and this is where my question mark is. Where are they going to score Bowie? Because remember, he had just come off pit road. Did he lose that lap completely, Brian? Yes, he did, because that was the wave around. That means Bowie has to let all these cars by, but he's the only one to survive the green flag pit stops. Getting back on the lead lap, he'll be tail end, but with the amount of cars we've lost at this point, that means he's running P10 for the most part.
Yeah, he got the break because he was able to get back on the lead lap without having to worry about getting the lucky dog in a future caution. He's able to catch it right here. Unfortunately, though, he's not going to be able to take advantage of the fresh tires the way he would like, because he's going to fall back to that 10th position and not be up running inside the top 6, I believe, where he was running before the caution came out. So, a lucky break in the sense that he was able to get his lap back, but unlucky because if this thing had stayed green, much like with Anthony DeBarro, they were going to have a pretty big lead over Ashton Crowder and David Comstock. I actually think this is more of a gift to those two drivers than it is to anybody else. I believe these guys caught the biggest break here with the caution coming out, because at that point they were easily going to have given up at least 10 seconds to Anthony DeBarro, and they were going to give up a similar gap to the 44 of Brandon Bowie as well. Definitely, I believe they caught the biggest break here.
Yeah, I'm wondering what's going through the mind of that driver in the 99 right now, because he's going to have the EOL penalty, so he'll go to the rear of the field here. You see him drop down to the inside, maybe actually go into pit road. Yes, he is. He's going to follow the commitment cone in, so DeBarro's night goes from bad to even worse. I think DeBarro at this point needs to put this behind him and move on to Richmond, because I think it's pretty much over for the driver of the 99. That is not a good feeling, Macklin, to know you've run so strong all season, and it's going to have to come down to a win in your in position for Anthony DeBarro at Richmond, and that's so much pressure.
It absolutely is a ton of pressure, but if there's one driver that can get it done, I have to believe that it's probably Anthony DeBarro. He's won in this series many times, just not having the season that he's been looking for, but definitely just trying to get things back on the right track here. And I believe that he'll eventually get that job done. Just have to wait and see what happens for him. And I was trying to look at the stats here real quick to see how he looks at Richmond. I'm having a hard time pulling them stats up. It actually looks like he's only got one start at Richmond here in the Full Throttle Cup Series, and he finished 15th in that race. So apparently not really the race that he was looking for in that one. So definitely going to have an uphill battle for the number 99, but we're about to go back green flag racing here, Cisco.
Yeah, this green flag powered by Hippie's Paint Shop, the official sponsor of the RSR Full Throttle Cup Series, helped out make a lot of the schemes out there tonight for this throwback Southern 200. And we'll talk more about them in the next break. But either way, Ashton Crowder on the lap and a green flag back in the air, re-green here from Darlington. And to the point of the field goes Crowder. David Comstock in pursuit with Dylan Jones in tow.
And everybody got single file very quickly. Now look at Dylan Jones making a challenge for David Comstock's second position right now. He's all over the back bumper as they head to turn 3. Looks to the inside, not quite going to be able to get there. Now goes up to the outside line, trying to run up against the wall and carry some momentum off the corner. This is the closest we've seen Dylan Jones to the front all night long. He started back in the 8th position. He's hung around inside the top 10 pretty much all race, but now he's up here challenging with the front 2. Be interesting to see what kind of speed that number 11 machine has now that he's up towards the front. He's gotten away from Carl Shedd. And how about Sean Boundy? We talked about him earlier, needing a lucky break to try to get some points to maybe make his way into the playoffs. Well, he's up in the 5th position right now, Cisco.
Yeah, Sean Boundy driving the colors of Wendell Scott out there. Obviously, Wendell didn't have the Sprite sponsorship. That's a Sean Boundy specialty right there. But the driver from Boomtown Sim making the Wendell Scott machine, the number 34 Sprite Chevrolet. It's looking pretty good out there right now. Macklin sitting 5th right now. And right behind him, Andrew Freenosh and Nick Silver hot in pursuit. The 24, the Batman Forever scheme, and some we're used to seeing on Frank Brasilia's car in the Super Speedway Cup Series, but Nick Silver broke it out tonight. The Underbirds out there right now.
Absolutely, and what a beautiful paint scheme that is. I remember watching Bill Elliott run it back when he was in NASCAR, and what it was one of my favorite paint schemes growing up as a kid. I used to love looking at that car, and I had the little toy diecast of it, and you know, I was just one of those kids that just fell in love with that car. So really cool to see it back out here on the racetrack. That's what's so awesome about these throwback weekends, getting to see what these guys are able to pull out and be able to throw a tribute to some of the drivers from the past. And Bill Elliott's one of those drivers that you could find a half a dozen different paint schemes that you'd want to run, and you really couldn't do it enough justice by just picking one. You want to try to run them all if you could. Unfortunately, you can't though, but just really cool to see these guys out here doing this. And for Sean Boundy, he's having a great run here tonight, kept himself out of trouble, avoided that big wreck that we had back about 40 laps ago. And now he has an opportunity to make up a big chunk of points. Still going to have an uphill battle heading into Richmond. He came into the night 67 points out of the playoffs, but definitely going to put a dent in that gap. Not sure if it's going to be enough to where he's going to be able to point his way in, though.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a long road to go for Sean Boundy in that number 34, but a great night nonetheless. He actually missed last week, was out at a boating race, from what I understand. A big racer of the RC boats on the water is Sean Boundy, so that was what he was up to back in the sim car this week for the driver of the 34. However, in a change of position, Dylan Jones and David Comstock just swapped it between the Rodney Coombs throwback scheme for Dylan Jones, takes Jones up to P2 and puts Jones in that mindset of now I have to track down the driver of the 27, Ashton Crowder.
And again, we have not really seen any tremendous speed out of that 11 all night long, partially because he's been mired back in traffic a little bit, and other because we just haven't really seen him be able to get up here and run with these guys. We've not really seen anybody be able to get up there and run with these guys. He didn't really show a lot of speed. He was 4th in practice, but then had a really slow lap in qualifying. Now he's starting to try to back it up and get back to the front as he's in that 2nd position. The problem is he's 1.4 seconds behind Ashton Crowder, and that's going to make things very challenging if he's going to get up there and chase him down. And then you also have to wonder how hard do you want to run these tires to try to chase him down. I don't imagine these drivers are going to come back to pit road, Cisco, if it stays green to the finish. They should be able to make it to the end without having to come back for fuel. So you have to believe they want to try to manage these tires to make them last the entire distance, and that means you need to be careful now so that you have something at the end of this thing.
Why don't we go diving in the pack a little bit and find a little bit of a battle. We mentioned Nick Silver and Andrew Freenosh kind of battling between those two right now, and it started to accordion behind Sean Boundy. You see the 34, the 88's kind of caught up to him, Nick Silver. Then you see Shane Ewing in the Mac Tools entry, different throwback car for that, and then the Terry Labonte throwback for the number 44 to Brandon Bowie. They're all starting to accordion together, really only split up by a couple tenths, and right now you saw Ewing get out of the way. He's going to let 2 cars go. The Haviland Ford of Dwayne Vincent also going by as well. So all those guys going by, but they're all still stuck behind Sean Boundy, and actually by extension Carl Shedd. Shedd also kind of falling back there as well. The biggest gap between all of those guys for the most part, really only 0.6 of a second.
Yeah, these guys are pretty much right on top of each other. Nick Silver trying to make a move here as they head to turn 3. He had a run coming off the corner on Andrew Freenars, but he wasn't able to get there, and he backed off going to the corner, and now Freenars in the wall, and he goes around. somehow hangs onto it down on the apron. A big moment for the 88 of Freenarge, and could have been disastrous for Nick Silver, but these guys settle it out. And now for Freenarge, he's going to lose all that track position back to the 10th position now, and he's got his work cut out for him to get back up to these guys.
Well, that was fun, Brian, because we were riding on board the 24 when that happened, and that's why I about lost it there, because that was really sketchy. And we're going to get a second look above from the LSRTV blimp, and just into the wall goes Freenarge. You see the sparks fly off the right side of the power tech entry, and Nick Silver, I have no idea how he made it through there without more damage. You see the 8 get a little bit of a tap, but made it, saved it, and kept it going was the driver of Andrew Freenarge. Got it back going. He runs in P10 right now. So night not over for Freenarge, but very, very not good incident for that driver of the 88. Really, at this point, he's kind of the third to last car left on this lead lap, with Trevor Apollo and Scott Walter left on the lead lap as well.
And a little bit of an update on a driver that was running up inside the top 3 just a handful of laps ago. Anthony DeBarro had that incident on the backstretch just about 20 laps ago. Well, he's officially out of the race, it appears, as he has lost connection to the server. He's 6 laps down in the 13th position. And if he had any shot of trying to get a win here tonight, that's definitely gone now. And it indeed puts him in a win or die situation at Richmond in 2 weeks for that number 99 machine. A driver that just has not been able to catch a break. It seems to continue here tonight at Darlington. So unfortunate for him, but that kind of opens the door for a different driver to get up there now, and that's Dylan Jones. He's really starting to inch his way closer to the race leader. He's cut that gap down to 1.2 seconds and seems to be getting closer and closer with every lap that passes. As a matter of fact, he just shaved another 10th off right there. He's down to 1.1 as they head through 1 and 2. He's carrying some really good speed through the middle of the corner. That's one thing I noticed that he was doing when he was behind David Comstock. It seems to continue to be the case for that number 11 machine right now.
Yeah, Dylan Jones at this point right now starting to track down Ashton Crowder, and you can see the speed difference between that gap starting to close. We'll take a look at the line, what Dylan is versus Crowder. Crowder last time by was a 28.17, Jones a 28 flat. So that tells the story, all you need to know right there. The battle between your two leaders, it's starting to close. You watch that number on the top of your ticker, car behind. That's the gap between Dylan Jones and Ashton Crowder right now. That's the battle for the lead. As that starts to get closer, those two go around Austin Coop in the very damaged number 55. And then meanwhile, David Comstock has basically lost all touch of these guys. He's about a second back from Jones and is losing more and more time. He's fallen back at this point to Carl Shedd, who's pulled out a little bit from that accordion group. And looks like maybe Sean Bounty might have had to let a bunch of guys go, because he's now P9, Brian.
Yeah, issues for the number 34 machine there, just trying to hang on at this point. He was running up inside the top 5 just a handful of laps ago, but now sits back there with Andrew Freenarge trying to battle for that 9th and 10th position and just try to hang on and get a good run. We're inside the final 35 laps of this race now, getting closer and closer to the finish of this throwback race, and curious to see which throwback car is going to come out on top. And right now, Ashton Crowder's got the lead, but that gap is closing as Dylan Jones gets closer to him, down to just 0.8 of a second now. And this is the point of the run where if you've managed your tires, you're going to be able to start showing it. And for Dylan Jones, it appears that that is the case, although he did give up just a little bit of time that last time by to Ashton Crowder. Drops back to 0.9 of a second behind him. So a little bit of a cat and mouse game going on between these two at this point, I'd say, Cisco. One pushing a little bit harder than the other one lap, and then they reverse it the next lap.
Yeah, and Dylan Jones at this point just has to be just kind of there at this point, because we know he has a little bit of a faster car, but the gap has gone a little way towards Crowder for now. But I think Jones' consistency is going to be key here. If Crowder starts to lose the tires off that 27 Chevrolet, Dylan can do something, but it's really hard to make these gaps down. And Brian, you're a driver, you know this better than anybody. When you push at Darlington, it is very easy to push that envelope just a little too far and get yourself into that wall and lose any sort of time you were trying to make up.
Darlington is one of my favorite racetracks to race on because it is a driver's track, and while it is a bigger track, it's 1.36 miles, you have to race this track like it's a short track. You have to. You cannot attack this track like it's a speedway, and we have a wreck down on the infield there. Looks like the 21 of Christopher Hurlow had a moment. He's got a blown motor. He's going to pit road. Looks like that's going to keep us from having a caution, but heavy damage for the number 21 machine. Have to go back and find out what happened to him. But back to this racetrack, yes, you have to drive this place like a short track. You cannot overdrive the corner. Slow is fast is the way I always try to approach these types of tracks, and that is indeed the case here. You take your time going through the corner and get a good run off the corner, you're going to carry more speed than if you try to attack the track and make mistakes and get up into the wall.
Well then, that was a very interesting take. We just got a second look at what happened to Hurlow, and apparently a little frustration on behalf of the 28 of Scott Walter because, well, if there was ever a Burnout Paradise-esque shunt in iRacing, that was it right there, because Walter decided, no, I'm going to go straight through the 21 and just ran him over, and as a result, Hurlow done for the night. That engine was in bad condition. I have no idea what he was thinking there, but Scott Walter just absolutely plowed into Hurlow.
And that's just tempers beginning to flare. This is a track that can bring it out, much like Bristol and Martinsville can. Darlington can do it too, because if you're having a rough night, having issues with another driver just makes it that much worse, and that's apparently what the case was going on between Scott Walter and Christopher Hurlow. Christopher was already several laps down, so you have to believe Scott might have been just a little bit frustrated that a lap car was out there potentially getting in his way, and that might have resulted in what we saw right there, but not really sure what happened. But the big story is now the lead has gotten a lot closer, as Ashton Crowder only has about a tenth of a second gap over Dylan Jones, and at the stripe right there, it's actually down to just a half a second. So these guys are beginning to get closer and closer, but now becomes that issue we've talked about all night long, Cisco. It is extremely hard to pass at this racetrack, and now for the first time tonight, we could see our front runners actually having to battle it out for the race lead, and you're not going to see Ashton Crowder pull over and let Dylan Jones go by like we saw these guys show respect to each other earlier in the race. He's going to make Dylan Jones earn it if he's going to get this win.
Yeah, he's going to make Jones earn it, absolutely, but Crowder's been out front for a while, so I'm wondering how much of this is sandbagging and how much is the tires going away. I'm not really sure if Crowder maybe ran the good out of the tires, out of those Goodyear Eagles, or if Jones was just saving. And I mean, the driver formerly of the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, Dylan Jones knows how to get it done when it comes to tire saving. We've seen it before from him. Keep in mind, Brian, we still have to talk about Crowder, an experienced driver, except not necessarily in this series. Does not have the same sort of starts that Jones does this season. Yes, Crowder does run in other series, but Jones has been here all year. Just something to keep in mind, that 27, he hasn't raced the 11 a whole lot here. Jones has raced a lot of guys in this series this season.
Oh, and something else to think about when you're Ashton Crowder is right now he's not in the top 30 in points. He sits back in the 34th position in points with only 9 races ran this season. If he gets a win and then can score some points at Richmond, he could potentially move up into the top 30 in points, and that means he would take a playoff spot and potentially be racing not only for race victories but for a championship against this guy that's chasing him down in this race. So this is a very big moment for Ashton Crowder. He needs to hold on and try to win this race. He's actually pretty close to being able to jump into the top 30 in points. Could potentially do it here tonight, as he's actually, I'm looking at it right now, only about 20 points out of the top 30 in points. So definitely feasible. Actually, I think he would probably have it as they run right now. But the problem is if Dylan Jones gets by him, that doesn't matter because he won't be able to get into the playoffs based on points.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Jacob Seelman hasn't joined us tonight, but I feel like he's here in spirit because that sounded like you were breaking out the Seelman calculator at that point as Jones got a little bit loose off of turn 4, but this is what it comes down to, Brian. We talk about this race coming up at Richmond. Actually, shelve that for a moment. Hello, Dylan Jones. That gap went from like 3 car lengths to about half a one. So we'll shelve that for a moment because Dylan Jones is there and he's looking for that lead.
He's looking for that lead. The problem's going to be, how is he going to get it? He's got to try to time this move to be able to get to the inside or outside of Ashton Crowder and make that move pretty quickly, because when you get down here to turn 1, you do not want to be side by side. Of course, if he's in the position, he's going to try to go for it, but that's a very tricky spot and could potentially be disastrous for both of these drivers. As you see, Dylan Jones, he's just not quite able to get there, but he's got a good run coming up off the corner, doing what he's been doing all night long, getting a good run through the middle of the corner and carrying that speed off the corner. You're going to see it down here in 3 and 4, gets right up against the wall, carries some good speed through the corner, doesn't quite get off the corner as well as he had the last time by, but he's staying right there on the back bumper of Ashton Crowder as they head to 1.
And Jones is there, and Jones taking it nice and easy right now. This can get physical, but I don't think Jones wants it to be. I think he wants a nice clean race here. I think that's what both drivers want, Macklin, but I have to say the 11s looked mighty quick as of late. But previous lap time by Crowder had him by 5/100ths, maybe holding him up a little bit, but Jones is there. The move, the possibilities are there. What does Jones have to do? Because we're talking about bonus playoff points at this point going into the first round of the chase. You know Jones is gonna want to get some of those, even if Crowder is looking to maybe lock himself into the playoffs.
Well, and you've also got to think that he wants to lock Ashton Crowder out of the playoffs. If he can get around Ashton Crowder, take this win away from him, he keeps one driver from being able to race him for the championship. So this is a big moment for Dylan Jones as well. Not only does it give him potential playoff points moving into those the playoffs here in a couple of weeks, this also potentially takes away a big hitter for the championship, because you have to believe Ashton Crowder is going to be a factor if he can get into the playoffs and be able to compete for that championship. So a big implication on both parts of this battle for Dylan Jones right now, and he's right there on the back bumper trying to make something happen. Drives it really deep into turn 3 that time by, but wasn't able to do anything with him. He's right on the back bumper still, and now there is a lap car ahead of these guys. That is, I believe that's Austin Coop that they are trying to get ready to catch. It is indeed Austin Coop, and this could be a moment, and it looks like Austin's actually going to heed the racetrack to these drivers. A very classy move on the part of him. Almost comes up into them as he was trying to get out of the way. A very scary moment, but he got out of the way and allows these drivers to keep going for the lead.
I think Austin didn't do the shoulder check before he tried to merge right there, because that was almost disastrous, but no harm, no foul. No blood, no tears. We're good right now. Dylan Jones and Ashton Crowder stay alive, and this battle will continue. But it almost ended, as Jake Sperry says, in tears for that one, because Austin Coop just about accidentally collected a bunch of cars there. But Austin Coop got out of the way. They made it happen. So the battle will continue between Crowder and Jones, and time is running out for Dylan. 15 to go at the line. He's got to make that move soon if he hopes to do anything with Crowder.
Well, and I believe Dylan just got a piece of the wall about a half a lap ago. He's got some damage on the right side of that car that we haven't seen pretty much all night long. That could potentially hurt the handling of this race car. Gonna have to wait and see what happens with that. He's still got some pretty good speed as he gets a good run up off of turn 2 right there. He's still about 3 car lengths back from Ashton Crowder. So got his work cut out for him. Gets right up against the wall in 3 and 4, trying to carry as much speed as he can. But as you mentioned, time beginning to run out for the number 11. He's trying to stay right there, and as they cross the stripe, he's actually going to pretty much stay even with Ashton Crowder that last time by. Did not gain, did not lose, and now he gets up against the wall in the middle of 1 and 2. Somehow keeps the car going with some pretty good momentum and still trying to chase down that number 27 machine.
Lost a little bit of time out of 2, so while those try and figure it out, we will swap to a battle going on right now. Shane Ewing and Nick Silver going at it right now. Ewing only about 2/10 or so in front of Silver, now 3/10, and Silver, talk about soldier of the day, got spun around in that big one, Brian. Was able to get the car righted, didn't get too much damage in the Batmobile itself. Still going here for Nick Silver. We're keeping an eye on that leader battle gap. That'll let you know what the battle is looking like while we're watching these two go at it. And Nick Silver starting to actually lose the tail end of Shane Ewing here. Ewing, an excellent defense.
Yeah, Ewing doing a good job trying to play defense on Nick Silver right now. He's gapped him just a little bit, and he's trying to set his sights on Dwayne Vincent, who's right ahead of him in the 6th position. And another driver I want to talk about just for a moment, David Comstock. He's really having a struggle in the second half of this race. He's fallen back to 4th. And while that doesn't seem bad, he's in the top 5, he's got a good run. He's been up front leading laps for the majority of this race, and now he's 6.5 seconds off the race leaders. Huge problems on that car that just have taken him out of contention for the race win here in the second half of this race, and now he's got to keep in mind that Brandon Bowie's right behind him. He could potentially lose another spot here as these guys get ready to go.
And looks like Crowder made some sort of incident off the turn because Jones just ate that gap alive for the driver of the 27. So this is not over. Dylan Jones is there. Does he have the capacity and the car left to make a move here on Ashton Crowder? We're coming to 10 to go this time. Time is running out. Does the former Peak Antifreeze Series driver have anything for the driver from Drillsville, from the Crowder crew himself? Who's going to get it done here, James? Brian Macklin as they head into turns 1 and 2. Man, he's out of the country and I'm still saying his name.
And I went back and looked at what happened to the 27. He got loose coming off of turn 2. He made contact with the outside wall, heavy contact at that, and it has put some serious damage to the right side of that car, and that has allowed Dylan Jones to stay right on his back bumper. And now this is where you've got to start getting aggressive. We're inside 10 laps to go. You have to start getting more aggressive to try to make that move and get around the 27 to try to take the race lead away, because you know Ashton's not going to pull over and let him go, and he's got the preferred racing group. Now you have to try to find a way to battle your way around him. Gets a great run coming up off the corner. Can he get to the inside of the 27? No, he can't. Now he's going to stay right on his back bumper as they work through 3 and 4. He tries to get right up close to him, almost makes contact with the wall himself, had to check up just a little bit, and it did hurt his momentum. And now Jones almost gets into the wall off turn 4, and it kills his momentum, and he's going to give up about 4 car lengths there as they head to 1.
Yeah, and Jones lost a ton of time right there. It's back to 0.3 of a second between them, but both these cars starting to lose the edge on them. The track too tough to tame, taking away the tires, and it's going to be coming down to a battle of grit between those two. Who is going to be the stronger? Who will prevail between those two and bring home the victory in the Throwback Southern 200? They're off of 4 once again. Crowder leads another lap. Can he hold on? Will the lap traffic get in the way, or will Crowder peg the wall again? We're just not sure. He's going to get a piece of it there, Brian. But either way, Crowder's still holding on, at least for the moment.
Well, now you have 2 damaged race cars that are not driving well at all. This kind of throws me back to when Ricky Craven and Kurt Busch were having a battle up here, and you had these guys talking about how bad the cars were driving. Well, right now, that's exactly
right now, Brian.
Absolutely, they're driving terrible right now, and that is exactly what we're seeing these guys have to deal with right now. Both these drivers are now dealing with ill-handling race cars and old tires in the final 5 laps of this race. I'm not sure which one's going to get it done, but I believe we're going to have an epic battle in the last 5 laps of this thing.
An epic battle, a battle royale, however you may say it. Either way, this is going to be a grand slam finish to this. Jones gets a little bit of the wall. He gets a little bit loose and loses precious time, but he still maintains that gap. 0.28 right now, the gap between the two. 5 to go at the line, and Jones is trying everything he can, and hopefully the live stream will stay alive long enough, Brian, that we can bring you the end of this. But either way, Jones gets slick off of 2, loses a little bit of time, but he's trying everything he can, every trick in the book in the 11 to close that gap. He makes up a good half a car length or so going through 3 and 4, but the time does not reflect it. Jones running out of time, 4 to go.
It's going to come down to which driver makes fewer mistakes in the final 4 laps of this race. Ashton Crowder, for the most part, has been flawless, with the exception of that incident coming off turn 2 about 6 laps ago. He has been pretty much flawless. The problem is that has hurt the aerodynamics of that car and has allowed Dylan Jones to be able to stay within reach of him and give him an opportunity to make a move at it. And as they come to the stripe this time, when they get off of turn 4, they're going to be at 3 laps to go, and Dylan Jones has closed that gap down once again, gets into a decent run coming up off the corner, and he's down to just about a car length now as they head to 1. Less than 0.2 of a second separates these two, and Jones needs to get a good run through the corner, gets a little sideways trying to hang on. He is driving the wheels off that car right now.
He is, and Crowder gets a piece of the wall, and all of a sudden Dylan Jones has the momentum of 5 cars right there, and now Crowder backing up to the nose of the 11, and it's gonna be a battle. 2 laps to go at the line. One of these cars is gonna bring home the checkered flag, one the steering wheel, I get the feeling, Macklin, and the question is, who will survive?
That is the big question right now. Jones right on the back bumper of Ashton Crowder as they head through 1 and 2. He's all over him. He's got an opportunity now. Can he get to his inside? He looks low, not quite got the speed. Now he goes to turn 3 as they come to the white flag. Gets a great run through the corner, tries to get right up on the back bumper of Ashton Crowder. Can't quite get there, tries to carry the speed, and here they come to the white flag at Darlington.
He's got 2 more tries at this, Brian. First into turn number 1. Jones can't go to the bottom, but he's going to get a good run through 1 and 2. Is there anything left in the 11? Can he fire it down to the inside? A good run off of 2. He's got momentum. He's going to look to the inside. Does he fire it to the inside? No room, no gap. Crowder blocks the lane. Dylan Jones looking for anything left. Nothing left in the Aegis car, and off turn 4. Ashton Crowder's going to do it. Jones will get loose, and Crowder will hold him off.
What an incredible finish, and for Ashton Crowder, he gets his first win of the season. Dylan Jones, as you mentioned, he's going to be bringing back the steering wheel as he made a huge impact with the inside wall as he crossed the stripe. Keeps the second position, but I have a feeling the car owner might not be too happy with the way that car is going to come back to the shop, as it looks like the motor is pretty much done, the body's pretty much done, everything about that car is done, and if he would have just kept it clean coming off the corner, they might have been able to reuse that car coming down the road.
I tell you what, my thoughts think of Julio Terzano off in the Texas area, the owner of Aegis Motorsports and PowerTech. And the drive that Dylan Jones put out there today, Brian, you know, we're all thinking of everyone down in Texas right now, and Dylan Jones put on one heck of a show. And, you know, we always like to say, if we bring any sort of entertainment to you guys, we're doing our job. And that was a battle royale. That was a great fight to the end. And the best part, Brian, they kept it nice and clean. No one moved anybody, nobody wrecked anyone, and it was a great battle to the end. And, well, I would say, I think in this scenario, Brian, I think the better man won.
I'd absolutely have to believe or agree with you on that one. Ashton Crowder had a fast car all night long. He stayed out of trouble, had a great battle with Dylan there, had a great battle with David Comstock earlier on in the race, and he comes away with a victory. And now I do believe that's going to put him into the top 30 in points, which takes a playoff position away from some of these drivers and makes things that much more interesting when we head into Richmond in a couple of weeks. And I want to go back to your point about Texas right now. Indeed, we are all thinking about everybody down there. A horrific couple of days that those guys have been through. I know a couple of guys down there as well that are dealing with some issues, and I just want to say, if you have any extra time or any extra money to get on the Red Cross and try to donate some money, or to maybe try to get down there and get some hands-on volunteer work going on, those guys down there in Texas could really use it right now. And just a devastating time for everybody down there, and they are indeed in our thoughts and prayers.
Absolutely. If you want to donate money to the Red Cross, you can donate $10 by texting Red Cross to 90999. That'll donate $10 to the Red Cross. And if you want to maybe not necessarily go with the Red Cross, but another organization, I know JJ Watt is accepting donations for people down in Texas, so check out his social media feed to find out where you can donate and find out how you can help out the people affected by the hurricane down in Texas. But either way, we're going to step aside for a moment. When we come back, we'll have full race results and post-race interviews here from the Throwback Southern 200. You're watching the Real Sim Racing Full Throttle Cup Series live from Darlington. We'll be back in a moment here on LSRTV, your home for sim racing. Welcome back here to the Track Too Tough to Tame here for the post-race show, the Real Sim Racing Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking here on LSRTV and iRacing Live and YouTube somewhat, as we're apparently hearing that a lot of issues on the YouTube streaming service tonight. So for those of you stuck around and made it through the live stream, we say thank you very much for joining us here today. It's been a really tough day, I know, on the stream, so thank you for sticking around and making LSRTV your home, if sporadic, for a little bit here tonight on this Monday night. But either way, Brian, we can digest that race a little bit now that the dust is settled and all that, and I will tell you, it was a fight to the end of it. A great battle and a fair battle between Ashton Crowder and Dylan Jones. A great battle, one of the best I've seen this season.
Man, that was incredible, and it could have gotten dirty. Dylan Jones could have went after him and tried to use the bumper to try to make a move and go for the win, but instead he chose to keep it clean, and you got to respect that, because we don't necessarily see that all the time on iRacing anymore, and just a really cool moment for those two, and just a really great battle. Like you said, it's one of the best battles we've seen on iRacing, and especially here in the Full Throttle Cup Series in a very long time, and definitely one that was exciting for us to call, and hopefully exciting for the fans to be able to watch tonight as well.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's go through our full finishing order, because I know everybody wants to hear from the drivers who made that finish happen. So we'll take you through our full race results right now, brought to you by Hippie's Paint Shop. Hippie's Paint Shop, an official sponsor of coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series here on LSRTV. Hippie's Paint Shop has over 5 years of experience providing top quality custom paint schemes for all iRacing vehicles at a low price, because, well, Brian, as we say every week, after all, at Hippie's Paint Shop, the cost isn't high, just the painter. Well, let's run them through their full race results. And on the top step of the podium right now, Ashton Crowder does it, holds off the Dylan Jones machine, and wins the race here at the Southern 200. Jones brings it home second, Carl Shedd third, David Comstock rallies back to fourth, fifth gonna go to Brandon Bowie, 26 to fifth. A great day for the driver of the Terry Labonte throwback scheme car. Dwayne Vincent gonna finish sixth, seventh gonna go to Nick Silver, Andrew Freenosh finishes eighth, ninth gonna go to Sean Bounty, and rounding out your top 10, it's Trevor Rapallo.
Shane Ewing will be the last car to finish on the lead lap here tonight. He finishes in the 11th position, and then Scott Walter will be the first car one lap down, the only car one lap down. He'll finish in the 12th position. The rest of these drivers suffered significant damage due to a couple of big wrecks that we had, and were multiple laps down. A handful were able to stay out there, the rest were not able to. Austin Coop was able to stick it out. He comes home in 13th. He made up a handful of points on Lionel Callisto. Not sure if it's going to be enough to get him in a position to race his way into the points, or into the playoffs on points next week, but still a good run for him nonetheless. Joseph LaPlaca will finish in the 14th position. Christopher Hurlow will finish 15th. Anthony DeBarro comes home in 16th. Again, having a rough night for the number 99 machine. Sean Casto will come home in the 17th position. Then we have Ross Cato in 18th. 19th goes to Lionel Callisto, and then Joseph Tice rounds out the top 20.
21st, Corey Wolf. 22nd, David Washington. 23rd, Doug Roth. 24th, Justin Lisenbeef. 25th, going to be Randy Yoakum. 26th, Douglas Wyatt. Nathan Little's going to finish 27th. Colson Bermudez, 28th. And Nelson Rivera did not start this race. He rounds out your 29 car field. Well, Brian, I'm going to step aside and send it down to pit road, and I've caught up with a very ecstatic Ashton Crowder. Brings home the victory for the drill school for the number 27. And Ashton, well, you were looking like you were in a one-on-one fight. I mean, we had a fight on Saturday night that was one-on-one, but that one lasted a little bit longer. Jones versus you there, and it was fair. It was a clean fight, and at the end of the day, you got it done. Walk us through it, man.
Well, you know, I knew if I just didn't make any mistakes that I would be in a pretty good position to at least get a top 3. I was sticking with Comstock for, you know, whole runs and just saving my tires and getting back up to him later on. But with whatever it was 20 laps to go, I decided to pull a dumb move, man, and I put it in the fence. And when you put a car in the fence, especially the Cup car, it doesn't go too good. And yeah, Dylan got back up to me. I burnt off my tires anyway, so I knew he was going to be at my bumper, but just trying to avoid mistakes, made one. I was scared that he was going to try to give me a bumper into a corner one time, and with my damage, that wouldn't have worked out too well. But he raced me insanely clean. Can't thank him enough for that. And yeah, it was a fun race, and not too exciting until I hit the wall.
Well, I tell you what, you were able to hold off Jones, and you lost so much time hitting the wall, but you were able to run the groove and run the defensive line. And was that really what got it done for you? Because it's so hard to pass here at Darlington, but at the same time, it also makes it easy for someone to move you out of the way. Talk me through that. What was kind of the mindset there? Was it run a little bit more defensively? Did you want to leave him a spot open so he didn't move you? What was your thinking on that?
Well, to be honest with you, I did about 500 laps earlier today on NR 2003 with the 2003 truck mod, and had basically the loosest setup I could find. And I ran with that setup. I ran the top line, and it seemed to work perfectly. And I eventually, hit the wall a few times on there, and decided, to do what NR 2003, strangely enough. NR 2003 taught me something, but just decided to do what I was doing on NR 2003 and just it on the top and arc it down to the bottom off the corner. That seemed to get the better run and save the tires the most on that game. And being basically the same coating over to here, I tried to use that to my advantage as much as I could, and worked out in the end.
Well, I think this is the first indication of someone using a racing sim to prepare for a racing sim. So
right, yeah.
You might have to chuck that down, but either way, Ashton, you get it done. Sponsors, shout-outs. Who gets it done for you and the team of the 27?
Well, first thing, Dylan Jones for once again racing me so clean. That really meant a lot to me, for him not to use the bumper really at all, and try to pass me as clean as possible. Big shout out to him for that. Real picks. Team the Drill Spill, Crowder crew. Our one supporter of the Crowder crew got knocked out early, but it happens here at Darlington. Then JDR Graphics for making me this Curtis Turner paint scheme that looked incredibly good. I had to put it on last minute because testing out another paint scheme I was making for the lulls, but we got it on the car, bent up the right side of it, pretty good, but the left side looks clean. That's wonderful, and you guys were putting on the broadcast, and I know YouTube was having issues, but
before we let you go, Brian, you broke out the Jacob Seelman calculator, and you got a little bit of news as far as the points battles go. So Ashton, you'll probably want to hear this. Brian, what you got?
Well, looking at it right now, it looks like, Ashton, you are going to move into the top 30 in points, which gives you a playoff spot and gives you an opportunity to race for the championship if you can be here through the entire playoffs. And also, looking at that, Adam Benefield was not here tonight, and with you moving into the top 30 in points, you're going to bump him back to 30th, and then Christopher Herlow, who made this race and finished up inside the top 20, he's also going to bump Benefield down, so he'll move him back to 31st, and that gives you Benefield's playoff spot, assuming you can run for the championship here in a couple of weeks.
That's pretty incredible, I'm gonna be honest. I wasn't expecting that. Just came in here, just trying to run a clean race, and then I get a playoff spot out of it. That's awesome.
Well, it's not over yet, Ashton, because if we see Benefield next week, that's going to be a very hungry Adam Benefield, I get the feeling. So not quite an easy ride for you through Richmond, Virginia, huh?
Well, going into it, we're looking pretty decent, but if Benefield shows up and knocks me out, I gave it my best try, and we're just gonna go in there and gonna obviously try to win, and hopefully not hit the wall with 20 laps to go, Cisco.
Well, this is now Ashton. Congratulations on the win, and we'll see you in 2 weeks from Richmond International Raceway.
Thank you.
Well, that gets it done for the guy trying to get into this points fight for the playoffs. But Brian, you've caught up with a pair of drivers from the Aegis PowerTech stable. The first one, there's not much left of the car, which I will say, I will ask him a little bit about that car. You can talk to him a little bit about the Rodney Coombs throwback machine on board the number 11. Brian Macklin, you've caught up with Dylan Jones.
Yeah, Dylan, incredible battle that you had with Ashton Crowder in the final few laps of that race. Cisco was talking to Ashton Crowder, and he brought up the fight we saw on Saturday night. We had a very similar fight here tonight between the two of you, and an incredible battle. Take us through your perspective of that fight.
Well, I definitely lost, I guess. I got beat up there. Pretty disappointed, honestly, and letting that one slip away. I feel like, we ran him down from quite a ways right there. And we didn't close it out in the end. I think I had better tires than him, and he made a couple big mistakes that should have cost him, and I just didn't capitalize on him right there. So the Aegis Ford Fusion had a pretty uneventful race otherwise. We just kind of rode around in the top 5 and stayed out of trouble, kept it out of the wall, but just weren't able to close it out at the end there.
Yeah, and the Throwback Weekend is always a really cool event for the drivers to be able to do, and you were one of the guys that was able to participate in that this weekend here, running that special Rodney Combs paint scheme. Tell us a little bit about that paint scheme and what it means to you.
Oh, that was back when I started watching NASCAR, and I was just scrolling through some pictures, and I thought it was really interesting. I didn't know too much about Rodney Combs, but read up about him. But I just thought it was an interesting paint scheme and something different I haven't seen.
Yeah, really cool paint scheme, and really cool that you were able to pay tribute to that this weekend. And then, of course, we know that your team owner's having some difficulties down in Texas, dealing with the after effects of the hurricane that hit them down there. Got to feel pretty good that you were able to give him a good run here tonight for Julio Terzado down there, kind of just dealing with a pretty rough situation.
Yeah, hope Julio's doing good down there. And no matter how disappointed I am in losing a sim race, it's nothing compared to what everyone down in Texas is dealing with down there. They're in our thoughts and prayers, and it's definitely something crazy down there.
Absolutely, and again, we do wish everybody in the Texas area the best as they try to recover from that very disastrous hurricane that passed through. Before we let you go, though, Dylan, just want to give you an opportunity to say thank you to your sponsors and then say hello to any friends or family that might be watching. Who makes it happen for you on the number 11 machine?
Yeah, definitely thanks to Julio for putting this Aegis group together, Washington, and Carl and Andrew and Andy, especially Andy this week. He put a bunch of paint schemes together in a short amount of time. He put a lot of work into these things, and I really wish I could have got it in victory lane for Andy, but we didn't tonight.
Well, congrats on your second place finish, and go dissect what's left of that car. We saw the big wreck you had coming across the line to take the checkered flag. I'm sure there's not much left there for you guys to work on.
No, that one will go in the graveyard.
That was Dylan Jones. He finishes second here tonight at Darlington. Pretty good run for them. Now I'm going to step just a little bit over here to Carl Shedd's pit box down here. He gets a third place finish. Carl, you started on the pole. You had a pretty good run at the beginning of the race. Then you had a moment coming off of turn 4 where you got loose and you gave up the lead, gave up a little bit of track position. You just never were quite able to rebound from that.
Yeah, it's a rough start, man. It's the weirdest feeling sometimes when you don't feel prepared for a race to get the pole. It's something you should be really happy about, but sometimes if you know you're not the fastest car, it's not a good feeling because from that point forward it could only get worse. So felt like it was holding up pretty well there for the first 10 or so laps, and then I was stopping and getting to rotate really well in the center and was driving hard off the right rear, and it was the weirdest thing. Usually you can feel it start to initiate a slide, but these cars were just kind of, when they were loose, if they weren't tight, they were just breaking loose instantly. So just broke free, and I could see the inside wall straight up my windshield. I thought for sure that I'd just taken myself out from the lead. So I'm just very happy that kept it straight, didn't take anyone out, and was able to calm down and get a third place out of it.
And talk about how difficult this track is, especially once the green flag runs really start to stretch out. We had a decent run there at the end of the race. I believe it was close to 45 laps to close out this race and give you the opportunity to run hard. Once the tires really start to wear out and you're having to slip and slide around, like you mentioned, how difficult is it to navigate around this racetrack, not only by yourself, but when you're trying to work through lap traffic and trying to race for position?
Yeah, it's extremely difficult, and this setup was a lot of fun too. It was challenging to say the least. Entry was really tight the whole night, no matter where you were, and you can bring your brake bias down a bit and maybe try and get the car off angle on entry a little bit so that you can keep it off the wall. And then, like I was saying, you're so tight on entry, you're trying to back it up, and then just right as you're starting to come back down the hills and get an exit, the rear end wants to break free. So a challenge all night. The wall keeps getting closer and closer every lap as those tires start to fade. And I think I got 2 pretty good stripes on there tonight. And it was probably around the same point in the run where the track and the car just completely changes, and you go into a corner, and you almost feel like you were sleeping on the job because the car is so completely different in the way it handles. And it's always fun here. I think this is the most exciting track. There's never a dull moment. Your adrenaline's rushing the entire time. Fortunately for us, we had those long green flag runs. We were able to stretch out. I think I was on an island there, about 3 seconds in any direction from anyone. So once we got to that position, it was just, calming down and run your race and have a good time.
All right, Carl, well, before we let you go and celebrate with your team on your good finish here tonight, I just want to give you an opportunity to say thank you to your sponsors and say hello to any friends or family who makes it happen for you on the number 45 machine.
Yeah, 10-4. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Power Tech Solutions, my boy James Ross. He has been on the car so far this season, and he's a wonderful guy. He was my spotter past season. We miss him. Hopefully find some time, come around and join us here. My teammates, Daniel, David, Andy, Trevor, Dylan, Joseph, Andrew, and Ross, Cato. And shout out to our buddy Julio down there in Houston. Julio, if you can make it up here in Dallas, you got a place to sleep, bud. And thanks for my family for putting it up, and also to you guys for taking over this league, doing such a great job, and putting on a great show. Appreciate it.
All right, Carl. Well, congrats on your 3rd place finish here tonight. Enjoy your off week, and we'll see you in 2 weeks at Richmond.
We'll see you, boys. Take care.
All righty, he finishes 3rd place here tonight. He started from the pole, didn't quite have the speed to bring it home with a victory, but a good finish nonetheless for Carl Shedd. And now, Cisco, we have an off week where we get to take a break of our own, and then we get set up for a finale to the regular season where several drivers on the outside of the playoff spots are basically going to be in a must-win situation if they want to have an opportunity to get into the playoffs and battle for a championship. Nelson Rivera, Austin Coop, Sean Boundy, the 3 that really stand out on that list that are going to have to go in there and battle their hearts out if they want to get into the playoffs.
And also you have to talk about Anthony DeBarro and guys like you mentioned, also throw Sean Boundy into that list. All sorts of guys, Brian, who are on the outside looking in, but that's in 2 weeks' time from the Richmond International Raceway. And maybe I'll use the off week, Brian. I'll drive down to LA and start bashing the YouTube servers with like a hammer or something, make sure they work so we get a good stream next week. But either way, for those of you who stuck around with us, we thank you for joining us here on LSRTV. And well, Brian, any last thoughts before we wrap it up here?
I just want to say I was delighted with how clean this race was here tonight. We didn't have a tremendous amount of cautions. We did have a couple that slowed the action down, but for the most part, lots of green flag racing here tonight on a track that really you would expect to see quite a few cautions and an incredible battle between Ashton Crowder and Dylan Jones at the end of that thing. We've already said it a handful of times, but that was one of the most incredible battles that we've had here in the Full Throttle Cup Series in a very long time between 2 drivers that had a tremendous amount of respect for each other, and they showed it because they kept things clean between one another. That's the type of racing you like to see, and that's the type of
that's the kind of racing we got to see tonight.
Racing we hope to see in 2 weeks at Richmond.
We got him. He phased out for a little bit there, but yeah, you're absolutely right, Brian. This is the kind of racing that short track spring, we saw it here at Darlington tonight, and Brian, I'm almost having to wonder, will they keep it that clean at Richmond, or is it going to be an all-out melee?
I think it depends on who's battling for the race lead. If you're one of these guys on the outside looking in, as you mentioned, Nelson Rivera, Austin Coop, Sean Boundy, Anthony DeBarro, any of these drivers that are on the outside of the playoff spot that need a win, I have to believe they're going to get very aggressive next week or in 2 weeks at Richmond, and you may see the bumper get used in order to get them the lead and ultimately a shot at the win if that's what it comes down to. For the rest of these guys, I think they're just going to be out there going after one more opportunity to get a win. If you are a Dylan Jones or a David Comstock or David Washington, it's potential playoff points that could help you carry yourself into the Final Four at Homestead. So definitely going to be an exciting race, and definitely going to be an aggressive race depending on who ends up at the front.
Well, I'll tell you what, the racing action is not over this week. Keep it locked to iRacing Live this week for all your oval racing action. Tomorrow night, it's NASCAR race night, and some of the pros going to take to the track before the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series does, so you'll want to catch both those races. The Pro Invitational starts at 8 p.m. on iRacing Live, and the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, the throwback race for them, at 9 p.m. on iRacing Live and iRacing's YouTube channel. Wednesday night, the Cars Esport Tour back in action, so we're looking forward to see them. The late models and the super late models take to the track after a little bit of a hiatus. And then, of course, Friday night, well, we have a little bit of a night off, so a little bit of a night off after the Stars fell in Alabama 250, so a little bit of a light week, but we're coming up to a lot of races coming up on LSRTV. We encourage you to check out our website, livesimracing.com, for everything that you need to know about the upcoming week of broadcast on LSRTV. Like us on the socials, LSRTV and LSRTV official, Facebook and Twitter respectively. Also, follow Evan's Instagram, because why not? If you could spike his Instagram account, I don't know, maybe he'll be happy one day. But either way, for everybody here who made it happen, we're thinking of you, James Fike, on the plane this week. We miss you, and we'll see you next week. It's going to be 2 a.m. for him, so that's going to be a lot of fun. But for everyone who made it happen tonight, for Jacob Seelman, he wasn't able to be with us tonight, working on some production stuff. Jacob, if you're hanging out with us, thank you for watching, and hope to maybe get you in maybe another one of these races here coming up soon. And for everyone tonight, for Brian Macklin, for Evan Pasoko doing the socials, for Lou Oleski over in the comments section helping me out, for Kyle Barnes and Doug Atkinson, the admins at Real Sim Racing, and for myself, Francisco Scaramuza, I'm saying good night from Darlington, and keep it locked to LSR TV. Plenty of racing action coming up. Good night, and hey, we'll see you on the flip side.